Hello and welcome to this week's reading vlog. I say this week, it is actually already Thursday morning and I have not yet started this vlog and I haven't yet read anything this week, but such is life at the moment. But I am at the start of a 4-day weekend, if you like. I'm off from now until Sunday evening, so I fully intend to make up for my horrendous start to the week in terms of reading and be very productive and actually pick up a lot of things, because this is the first time I've had any significant break for a number of weeks. I think I've had a grand total of 3 days that I have not been working in the last, what is it now, 16? So that's pretty atrocious. Consequently, I've been very, very tired all of the time. I did, however, combat the impending slump that I had at the start of the month by binge reading a favourite guilty pleasure series, the ACOTAR series by Serj, which I have thoroughly enjoyed jumping back into. And I've also, in a similar vein, been binge watching the first series of Vampire Diaries, which I had not watched for a really long time and I used to be obsessed with years ago. So clearly fantasy romance has been what has dragged me out of any kind of miserable slumping feelings of being just stressed and overworked and everything else. But that aside, I fully intend to have a lovely few days. I'm actually away from home for the next 2 days and it's supposed to be gorgeous weather as well. It's already really, really warm. So I fully intend to enjoy myself reading outside in the sunshine as much as possible. In terms of what I will be reading, I've decided to pick up a book which has been on my TBR for probably the longest time of any book I own, and is something I have been eagerly anticipating and also really procrastinating for about 10 years, and that is This Beauty, Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell. I'm not going to hold this up because I'm in a car park and it looks weird. But I've been wanting to read this book ever since I first watched the film when that came out about 10 years ago. I'm going on 10 years roughly, I don't know exactly. And it was one of my favourite films I've ever seen. I've rewatched it countless times. It was like nothing else I'd ever experienced. Just the most captivating, wonderful story. And I thoroughly, thoroughly enjoy it. And of course, when I found out it was a book, I desperately wanted to read this book. But at the same time, as is typical of me, I didn't want to be disappointed by it. And because I loved the film so much and I thought the story was so, so intriguing, I was just terrified that the book would not live up to my expectations and I'd be disappointed, and that would therefore taint the story for me. So I bought it last year. I'd been trying to get it from the library prior to that, and I think I actually did get it out from the library once or twice and then just never ended up reading it. But today is the day that we are going to start Cloud Atlas and I'm really, really excited. So come along with me for this long weekend and enjoy some sunshine, some reading, and hopefully some lovely countryside scenery. And I will check in with you again a little bit later. Hello, so it is now Friday morning and we are heading out for another gorgeous day around the Rutland countryside. As you saw in yesterday's footage, it was just the most perfect day, the most beautiful countryside and sun, and I just had a lovely time. And the car that we've borrowed for these couple of days as well is an absolute dream. It's such a beautiful classic. It's like driving around in an antique. I love it so much. And I do not want to give it back, but there we go. We have to later today. But another morning in the sunny countryside and take some more photographs, do some more filming, whatever we get time to. I will definitely try and stay in the shade today. As you can probably tell, I'm a little bit weathered from yesterday, but it's okay. And it's meant to rain tomorrow anyway, so I will not be getting any more sun then. So let's head off now and have another lovely day of adventures, and I will check in with you a little bit later on. Oh, and I forgot to mention, of course, reading vlog. I should give you a reading update, right? So I started Cloud Atlas yesterday. As you saw, I have read the first 3 sections of this, so we've met 3 of our characters and timelines to this point. I'm really loving this so far. It's so weird reading what feels like multiple different books in one, because so far the stories do not connect at all. I only know they connect because I know the film. So it feels like reading short stories at the moment, but without having endings. So it's very disjointed, but in a really intriguing way. And I'm pleased to see how close to the story the film did actually keep, because a lot of what I'm reading is very familiar and I can visualize it in my head, which I'm really, really enjoying. So a bit early to have concrete thoughts about the plot and things like that, but the writing style I'm very, very impressed with. The language that was used, especially in the first section, is really, really impressive. I'm already having to Google loads of words, so you can tell it's well written when that has to happen. So I'm having a good time so far with this book, but I will give you some more thoughts later once I've read a bit more, hopefully, and had a chance to see how the storylines are going to connect, which I'm really excited about. Escaping the sun for a few moments in a bit of a woodland walk by Rutland Water. It's so pretty here today, but so hot. Home at last, and some well-deserved shade. It has been unbearably hot today, but finally back in my garden, and I'm really, really happy about it. I've had a lovely couple of days, but it's definitely time to unwind. I'm going to have a few minutes just sat in the garden, then go and sort all of my unpacking and errands and goodness knows what, but hopefully we'll have some time for reading a bit later, so I will let you know when that is, and my thoughts on my book so far. Hello, I am just about to settle down and do a spot of evening reading. We have finally lost the sun and it has cooled down and it's just lovely here, so I'm going to carry on in the safety and quiet and shade of my own garden and read a bit more of Cloud Atlas. I am now up to page 200 and... what are we on? 253, so just over halfway. I'm having such a good time with this book. It's really, really unusual. So certain sections I'm loving and they are exactly as I imagine and remember from the film, and I'm really, really loving. Other things, especially the most futuristic book 1, so the one that's kind of in, I think, futuristic Korea or somewhere in Asia. Apologies if I'm not getting the influence quite right, but from the names and things I'm assuming that's a society. That one was my least favourite in the film and is also my least favourite in the book, which I kind of expected, but just the story, I'm not really into kind of futuristic sci-fi type things, and that's very much the vibe we get, you know, that sort of dystopian feel, which is not my thing at all. But it was okay, you know, it was only like a 60-page section, so I powered through and I'm now onto a different one. But I'm looking forward to actually getting back to some of the characters and seeing how we pick up with the story in the second half. It appears that we have 2 sections for each of the 6 timelines and versions of characters, so The second round I think will be much more interesting because we'll see a lot more of how the characters and the timelines interlink, but we are starting to see a lot more of that now, which is very, very interesting. So I'm going to try and get through the next section now, and then I will have read one section for every single set of characters, and we will see how things go from there. Having the most lovely day. This is such a fun garden. It's really just reminding me of my inner childhood self who just loved to explore and run down the paths and experience all of these different little pockets of nature from across the world. It's the perfect outing and I'm having a really, really nice time.
The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, a novel by Taylor Jenkins Reid.
Hello, I am out for a walk in one of my favourite evening nature spots, which I often come and sit and read in and wander through during the summer, but I mean all months of the year really, but especially in the summer. It's so beautiful. It feels like a kind of wild grassy meadow, as you can see behind me, with lots of beautiful trees and gorgeous sunshine, and it's just a perfect quiet little spot in the town where I live. So I particularly enjoy escaping here if I don't want to drive up to the hills or anywhere a little bit further afield. So here is where I am, and I plan to do some more reading this evening. I am still listening to the audiobook of The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which I'm surprisingly enjoying. I wasn't sure about this book, I really wasn't. I was hopeful, but I didn't know if it would end up being for me. I'm not one for contemporary-esque stories and relationship drama and that kind of thing, but the old Hollywood setting is something that's particularly appealing to me. And actually, I'm finding the story very captivating. I think Evelyn is a particularly interesting narrator of her own life, and I also like the modern setting sections with Monique as well. I find her a very interesting character too, and I'm really intrigued to see the big reveal towards the end of why Monique has been chosen by Evelyn to tell her story. So I'm liking this so far. I'm glad I'm reading it, and it's always good to push myself out of my comfort zone and read books that are not exactly the genres I would usually go for. So I'm about halfway through now. I will read a bit more this evening and then hopefully finish this one off tomorrow, and then can pick up another book this week. So I'm very happy that reading productivity is a little bit more back on track now. I'm not sure if I will get to the full 12 books that I had decided to read for this month, but even if I get to 10, I think that will be a good start and definitely making me feel accomplished. But we will see. Maybe I can pick some short ones up and actually make it to the 12, but that's enough rambling for now. Let's go and enjoy some more sunshine and carry on with my book. It is Tuesday evening now. I've just come out of work, late again, as usual, but we won't go into that. And I'm planning to have a good evening of reading tonight. I am planning to watch along with some sprints tonight from Ashley from Frolic Through Friction's channel. She is running those at 7, so that is the plan, to join in with those. I have quite a lot left to read this month. I'm really not sure if I'm actually going to get through all of these 12 books in the month. I'm probably going to start all of them, but finishing them will be a little bit more dodgy. But who knows? If we have a good night tonight, then it might be okay. So I still have a little bit of Amara and the Night Brothers left to finish. I have about 8 chapters, I think, left of that. So I'm going to carry on with the audiobook on my drive home and a little bit when I get home as well, and hopefully finish that one off before sprints. And then I can pick up a physical read during the sprints. I think I want to start the one that I haven't started yet, which is Lonely Castle in the Mirror. This is a really intriguing book. I have heard about it from a couple of different people and just decided I would pick it up as something different. I found an e-copy through Scribd, so I will be reading that one on my computer. It's quite a long book. I think it's around the 500-page mark, so I will definitely not get all of it done tonight, but if I can at least have made some decent progress into that one, I will then only have that to complete and the rest of Fires of Vengeance to finish as well over the next 2 days after today. So I have a chance of doing it. I'm still not that far into Fires of Vengeance either. So as I say, the chance of me finishing all of them is a little slim, but you never know. So I think I might also try and get the audiobook for Fires of Vengeance, so at least I can have that one on my drives to and from work and get a little bit more of that done. Or if I go on any other walks and things like that, I can at least be consuming that one audibly, whereas the other one has to be a physical read. So we'll see. I don't know, but that's the plan for this evening anyway. Rambly update done. And I will check in with you again a little bit later, probably when sprints are on, and let you know my final thoughts on Amara and how my other reads are going. Hello. So I have failed miserably in the second half of the month in terms of reading updates. I have been vlogging random bits of B-roll, but I haven't actually sat down and spoken to the camera for some time. So as it's now the last day of June, I figured I would sit down and talk you through all of the books I have been reading for the last couple of weeks. And if there are any relevant bits of B-roll that I've sporadically filmed, I will insert these over the top of what I'm saying. So I have had a very productive month for reading. I have managed to read, I'm currently halfway through my final book, but I've managed to read 12 and a half at the moment books, so hopefully we'll get through the 13th. My pledge was 12 books, so I've already definitely achieved that, but I would like to manage the 13th. I don't know whether I will, but we'll get to that in a moment. So I've had a very, very successful couple of weeks. I just have been really, really tired and not remembering to vlog most of the time, but never mind, we can talk through the books now. I will try and make this fairly snappy, as I have no idea how long this video already is, with the fact that it covers 2 weeks, so bear with me and we will talk through. I am going to be looking down as well because I have my list of all the books that I've read. So I think this vlog started off with me starting Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell while I was away for a couple of days in Rutland. I really enjoyed this book. It wasn't quite the mind-blowing 5-star that I kind of hoped it would be, but it was still really, really good. It was still a 5-star read, and I did really enjoy it. And I'm so glad I finally ticked off what I think was the longest standing book on my TBR. So I have this one here. I really, really enjoyed reading this, as I said. I still do think I prefer the film version, which is a very, very rare event for me, but I loved that so, so much. And I feel like this book translates so well into film, and it was so close to the story in here that I just absolutely love that and will love it forever. But as I say, this was a 5-star. I love the premise of this book. So we follow 6, I think it is, different storylines and timelines, and each one has a slightly different genre of story, which I thought was such a fresh and exciting concept. I've never read a book like this or seen a film like this before, and I absolutely loved it. The reason I didn't enjoy the book as much as the film is that 2 of the sections, well, 1 mainly of the sections was not the kind of book I would ever read. It was sort of futuristic dystopian type story, which I never read. So I found those sections quite a struggle to get through. And with the way that it was formatted as well, it was like an interview style narration. I found that quite boring, honestly, to read, which was a shame, but it was only that one section that I didn't really enjoy that much. The rest of them I did really enjoy, although the other one that I struggled a little with was the kind of futuristic, post-apocalyptic type style, which in itself was an interesting story. It was just that the language they used was really, really hard going to follow. So yeah, that aside, I loved this story, and it was just so interesting seeing how they linked each section together. So whereas the film jumps backwards and forwards a lot, this one was just 2 sections per story, and it kind of went in forward in time and then backwards in time to the end of the book. So you followed sequentially with the timelines, if that makes sense. And it was really, really clever and so well written, and I just think this is a fantastic book, and I think anybody who is even vaguely interested should read this because it was really, really good. So I feel like that was a bit of a update of 2 halves, but not quite as good as it could have been in my personal enjoyment level, but a really, really well written book and absolutely fabulous, and I'm very glad that I read it. I hope that made sense. We're not getting off to a good start, are we? So I finished that one. I then moved on to a very, very different book, which was Beauty and the Beast, which you can probably just about see. I'm not going to get it down, but it's just on the shelf behind me there. So this one was the story written by Gabrielle Suzanne Barbot de Villeneuve, which is probably not how you pronounce it. I'm sorry, I don't speak French. This was a version, I believe, of the original like 17th century or something story, and it was a really, really good read. So it was I've got the Mina Lima edition, which has got all the beautiful illustrations and the kind of interactive sections, which was a really fun experience to read. But the story itself I really enjoyed too. I do love a classic fairy tale, and it did feel very old-fashioned in the way that it was told and very authentic. It was a beautiful experience. It wasn't a 5-star, but it was a lovely book to read. I think probably a high 3-star maybe. It was like the story itself was a little bit convoluted, which you always get with fairy tales, but it is one of my favourite fairy tales to read books based on, so I'm glad to now have read an original version, and as I said, a beautiful experience reading that particular version of the book that I own. I then moved on to a very, very different book. So something that I have been meaning to read for quite some time, but wasn't sure if I was going to end up liking, but I'm really, really glad I did pick it up because it was a very good story. And that was The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Now, this is some people's favourite book. I've heard this raved about on BookTube by lots and lots of different people. I was always a bit sceptical of picking it up because I thought it probably wouldn't be my kind of story. I don't tend to read anything contemporary, and I don't tend to read just people stories, if that makes sense. I always have like a detective plot or some fantastical element or something else as an addition to just people's lives, because that's the kind of things that I like to read. So I wasn't sure with this one whether I would enjoy it or not. I chose to listen to this as an audiobook, and I'm really glad I did because it translated very well to the audiobook format, because it's somebody recounting the tale of their life basically, so it makes sense to be read to, because it's like you're listening to that person telling their story to you. So it made sense in that format to me. And I really enjoyed this, actually. I found it very captivating. I found I was drawn into the story and I was genuinely invested in what happened. And I think the way the characters, especially Evelyn, but the way that all of the characters were crafted was really, really well done. They felt very believable people, and it just felt like all of this could actually have happened in history. It was a really, really well-crafted tale. And I really liked it. I think this would make for an incredible film also. I think someone should do this as a film because it would be great to watch. And I probably would enjoy it more to watch than to read. But definitely a good book. I'm very, very glad I picked this one up. This one got 4 out of 5 stars for me. I don't know if I'd read it again, but it's definitely something I'm glad I did get to. So I can understand where the hype comes from. I didn't absolutely love it, but I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. So very, very glad to have picked that one up. Also very good representation from what I can tell. So it has points for that too. I then also moved on to another book, which again, I didn't ever really expect I would enjoy and was very sceptical about picking up, which also has very good representation, and that is Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. Now, this couldn't be more out of my comfort zone if it tried. I don't read contemporaries and I don't really read graphic novels, so this on paper was something I absolutely should have hated, but actually ended up really liking. So this was another 4 out of 5 star for me. I read it as like an e-copy. It's a webcomic initially, and that's the format that I read it in because you can access it for free, and it wasn't something I thought I would buy because I'm probably not going to read it again. Although I think I will move on to the second volume because I think there are 4 out now, and I'm intrigued to see where the story goes from here. It was so cute and wholesome, this. It was absolutely wonderfully heartwarming. And again, something I think everyone should read because it felt so realistic and relatable to the emotional torment that these poor boys go through and just how horrible high school kids can be. I mean, I have lots of memories of very unpleasant people at my high school, and it's definitely a very heartwarming story in the fact that they're not dragged down by all of this and by this feeling that they don't fit in and that they need to be the same as everybody else to be accepted. And that, I think, is something most people go through in high schools, at least British ones, which this is. So it felt very relatable to me. And I can only speak from my own experience, but it's something that I think a lot of people will relate to. And it's so lovely to see that actually you can be accepted by the most unlikely people and in the most unlikely ways, and that everyone deserves to be themselves and to express who they are. And I just think it was such a wonderfully written tale. So I'm really, really glad I read this one, and I definitely will move on to the next volume and hopefully things continue in the same vein. But yeah, again, another one I never thought I would like, but ended up really doing so. I am pleased with how varied my reading has been throughout this month, because I've definitely picked up some different things than I would usually, and it's been a really good experience than just sticking to fantasy and murder mysteries all the time. So maybe I will read more diversely again in future. Who knows? It is something I love about readathons, that it does make me pick up different books. So moving on, what did I get to next? Oh, another really random choice, but one which I thoroughly enjoyed. I was in the mood for a bit of Shakespeare the one day, so I decided to read Much Ado About Nothing by William Shakespeare, obviously. I have the most beautiful copy of Shakespeare's works, the complete collection of all of his works. That's, I don't know if it's a Barnes & Noble or if it's just another leather bound, but it's absolutely beautiful, beautiful book. And I periodically will dip in and just read one of the plays if I'm in the mood for it. And this particular day I was in the mood, so I decided to pick up Much Ado About Nothing. This is one that I kind of vaguely knew the story because of an old film version which I'd seen a long time ago, which I remember being really fun actually. And I thought I wanted one of his more light-hearted stories, and this seemed like a good choice. And I thoroughly enjoyed this one too. I've enjoyed everything I've read this month. I always enjoy Shakespeare for the language. I love the way that the words come across and the way that you can visualize the characters being acted because it's in that play format, and I love that side of things. And the characters in this one again are really, really strong. The banter between Beatrice and Benedict are just absolutely wonderful, and I love that kind of feisty relationship, and the wit is very, very strong in this story, and I love all of that. So I found that one great fun to read. So yeah, a very short read. I haven't got a huge amount to say about that one, but I really, really enjoyed that one too. I didn't star rate that one because I feel like it's kind of hard to play and they're only very short, so I wasn't sure, but it would probably be a 4 if I was to, but I don't know. So moving on again. So the next one, I really, really enjoyed this one. So this, I think, is one of my favourite books I've read this year so far. This is Fires of Vengeance by Evan Winter, the sequel to The Rage of Dragons, which I read about a year ago. I'm pretty sure it was June or July last year that I read the first one. Loved the first one, 5 stars, really, really strong read. This carried on exactly in the same vein, another 5 stars, another really, really good read. I absolutely love the way these stories are written. So the premise of this one is based around some kind of African mythology or folk tales or something. I'm not quite sure the specific origin, but it's African inspired basically, and the culture in here I believe reflects that. And it also involves dragons and demons and all kinds of wonderful mythical creatures, and I just love that. It's also very political and kind of a war fantasy story, if you like, so there's a lot of fighting, a lot of action in these, which I personally really enjoy. It's a very, very fast-paced series. The action just keeps coming and coming. There's not much in the way of sit-down talking bits unless it's the political side of things, which in its own way is very action-packed too. So you are constantly on the go in this book, and it was really, really something which I just ate up. I loved reading this one. I really want the 3rd one out now, and I don't know when it's supposed to be coming out, but hopefully soon, because I need more of this world. They're really, really good. So a continuation of a fantasy series, one which I'm now up to date with. This was fairly high on my priority list for this year to get to, and I'm so, so glad that I did. 5 out of 5 stars, amazing read. I loved this one. So in terms of a synopsis for this one, I can't really go into too much detail because it is a sequel, but the first book in the series, The Rage of Dragons, follows our main character Tao, who is from a very poor family. So in this culture we have quite a hierarchy of society, and Tao is from like the one up from bottom, basically, in the way that their society is viewed. And all he wants, basically, throughout the first book is revenge. So his father is killed and he wants to avenge his death and prove himself as a warrior and kill all the people who have belittled his family and killed his father over the years. And it's a very, very gritty tale of him clawing his way up through the ranks, becoming as strong as he can be as a warrior and proving himself to those around him and to himself as well. It's quite dark in places. It's quite a gritty, well explained book in that you get lots of graphic details of things, but I don't mind that personally, and I really, really was invested in the characters in this story. I get kind of Kaladin from Stormlight vibes with Tao. He's got a little bit of that going on. It's that same sort of discovering yourself through military events kind of plot, but I really, really enjoy the series. This one, as I said, picks up very much in the same vein as the first one, and thoroughly enjoyable read. So the next one, which I've actually read very recently, I only finished this one yesterday, was yet another different read for me, and that was Amara and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. So this one is a middle grade book. It's one that I've heard a lot of people, specifically Gavin, but lots of other people on BookTube as well, talk about and really, really recommend, and I decided to give it a go because I fancied something a bit different again. I pretty much have read every single genre that I would ever consider reading in this month, and it's been great. So yeah, Amara and the Night Brothers follows our main character called Amari, who is, I think, 13 in this story, and she is basically trying to find out what has happened to her brother. So her brother is a few years older. He had got this very mysterious job which he couldn't tell anybody about, and ends up going missing, and nobody knows what's happened to him. Everyone around her just says, oh, your brother's dead, he's not coming back. But Amari doesn't believe this. She believes he's out there somewhere and she wants to find him. And so she's able to, how do I say this without spoilers? She becomes involved with the organisation that her brother worked for and ends up basically training as some kind of secret agent and trying to uncover the story of what has happened to him. And it's such a fun read, this. It's apparently got like Men in Black vibes. I haven't a clue what that story is actually about, but that's what people say. To me, it felt quite similar in feel to the Percy Jackson books by Rick Riordan. Obviously, that's Greek myth inspired. This is nothing like that, but that same tone of story and the relationships between some of the characters, I definitely got that feeling from it, and that's also a middle grade series, which I really enjoy. It's very high stakes, it's very fast paced. It felt surprisingly intricate as a plot for a middle grade. I know they can be, but it did feel like quite a deep story. It wasn't just very surface level, easily predictable, there was a lot to it, which I really enjoyed. I thought Amari was a great character. And yeah, I really enjoyed this one, and I think there is going to be a sequel to this one, which I definitely will be picking up. Again, something a bit different for me genre-wise, because it was by and large contemporary, fantasy bits in there, but the first part especially was all contemporary, and I was like, oh, am I going to like this or not? But once we got into the magical academy type setting, I absolutely ate this up. I thought this was really good fun. So high 4 stars for this one. I pretty much never give middle grades 5 stars, but a high 4 is about as good as it gets for me, and I really enjoyed it. So another really strong read there for me. My least favourite book that I've read this month was the one I'm going to mention next, which was a really, really short story actually, so it almost doesn't count as a book, but I'm counting it anyway. And that was Galatea by Madeleine Miller. Now, I've loved the other 2 Madeleine Miller books which I've read, those being Cersei and The Song of Achilles, both absolutely wonderful. She writes these very emotional, intricate, character-driven stories based around the Greek myths. So obviously, Song of Achilles follows the story of Troy and the Trojan Wars, and Cersei follows the character of Cersei, the original witch, as she is known, and her adventures across time. This one followed a character called Galatea, who is the wife of I think he's a stone carver. He creates these statues, basically. And she's a character I knew nothing about. She is present in Greek mythology, but I didn't know anything about her story already. And this is just a very, very short character study, almost, of this character. I found this so boring. I don't know if I was missing something because I didn't know the original story, but I thought this was just a very strange book, and I didn't really feel like we ever got into the story. There wasn't really a huge amount happening. It wasn't particularly well explained, and it was just this woman complaining about her relationship, which seemed very toxic, but also I just didn't care. Like, it was really not for me, this book, at all. I was quite disappointed by this one because, as I said, I've loved the other two Madeleine Miller books, which I have read, but this one, just not at my street at all. I didn't really understand what I was supposed to get out of the story. It just wasn't for me at all. But another one read, but yeah, not my cup of tea at all, this one. I think it is hard with short stories to be able to get a meaningful plot and characters and everything all packed into just a few pages, and this one I think definitely fell short of that. It was very much about the character, but it didn't really even go into enough depth for it just to be about the character. It was a strange one, so not for me. And then the final book, I think that's all of them now. Yeah, the final book, which I have started reading, this will be my 13th read, and I don't know if I will get this one finished or not, but fingers crossed, is Lonely Castle in the Mirror by Mizuki Sugimura. Apologies again if I'm pronouncing that one wrong. So this one, again, I've heard a couple of people on BookTube talk about. This is a Japanese story. So this story is kind of hard to explain, but it follows 7, I think it is, children who are all basically trying to hide away from going back to school and from being involved with society at all. So they hide away in their rooms, and they are able to access through their mirrors this magical castle, which they can enter and they can have adventures, but they have to be back by a certain time every day, or they will be trapped and pursued by this wolf queen, who is kind of the antagonist, I guess, in the story. It's a really interesting story. I would love to know what aspect of Japanese mythology or folktales or whatever this is based on, because it is fascinating as a story and as a concept. So these children have this quest, they have to find a magical key, and it's just a really fun story. As I say, I'm not that far through, I'm probably about a third of the way through, so fingers crossed I can get this one finished, but I'm really intrigued so far, and I think it has a lot of potential to be a book that I really, really enjoy. So that is it for my summary of the books that I've read over the past couple of weeks. I hope that has made some semblance of sense. I feel like I've just rambled for the last 20 minutes, but fingers crossed that this video will make a little bit more sense now and will not actually end up being too long, but we will see. Big thank you also to Maddie, who hosts this readathon, because it is one of my favourites. It's so intricately created. There is so much going on, so many prompts, so many graphics. She's put so much work into this readathon and I absolutely love it. So please do more next year, Maddie. We love it. So give me a like down below if you enjoyed it. Chat to me in the comments about any of the books I have read, anything else you'd like to discuss with me. I love to chat to you guys, and please consider subscribing if you'd like to see more from me. It really helps my channel and it means a lot too. Thank you for watching. I will see you very soon in the next video, so goodbye for now.